Herman Brood was a Dutch singer and pianist, and Wild Romance, or The Wild Romance, were his backing band. There isn't a lot of information that I could find out about them, and what I could find on Wikipedia was somewhat chaotic. But I gather that he was quite a big thing in the Netherlands. Their first album was released in 1977. Herman died in 2001. And their most recent album was 2006, and I'm sorry I forgot to count the albums, but we're around about 15 or so, I would guess. There's been quite a bit of change of lineup, it would seem, through the years. They were described as being the best and the only Dutch rock and roll band. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the second album by Herman and the Wild Romance. It's my first encounter with them. I feel like if I was Dutch, maybe I would have heard of these guys. I certainly get the impression that they were well known inside the Netherlands. The band is generally described as being rock and roll, and some of the descriptions of this album seem to imply that it was rock and roll, but this confuses me sometimes because I think of rock and roll as being stuff like Bill Haley and the Comets, or rockabilly as Elvis, but still under that same kind of banner. And I guess stuff that now would be classed as rockabilly is mostly what I think of as rock and roll. But the term rock and roll kind of bled through into rock quite a lot, especially into the 70s. So I think I would say it was rock, personally. Apparently in the US, they were marketed as being new wave. Like, kind of okay, but it doesn't feel quite right. I think the closest thing for me is that it kind of feels similar to what in the UK might be described as pub rock. Partly this is because of the prevalence of the piano in here, which sounds to me a little bit like a pub piano, which is kind of crazy. I don't know really why. So that the comparisons of people that it sounded like to me, I felt like I wanted to, reference Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel, earlier David Bowie, although I wouldn't say it was glam. And there's a guy who was around in the 80s called B.A. Robertson, who a lot of people haven't come across, I don't think, but there was a strong reminder of that and his kind of style and approach to music. It's short, snappy rock songs. There's 15 of them in the album, and it's not a particularly long album either, I wouldn't say. It's just because the songs are short. There's a nice band. There's some really nice playing. I would say it's tight. It's slightly more complex than might be suggested by a title like pub rock. There's kind of complexity in riffs and different things and stops and motifs and stuff that happen, which kind of potentially in my head leads towards a description of it being more new wave. Again, it's somewhere between the two, I think. There's quite a variety in feels and sounds. Most of it is upbeat. There's some really nice backing vocals I want to bring out. I love the backing vocals here. Herman himself obviously is singing, and he's got an interesting delivery. He's kind of occasionally when he was slower, he reminded me of Van Morrison, but he's kind of growls and wails and sings and croaks a bit as well. So, and especially in the faster songs, it feels a bit like he's in a hurry, and I think it's kind of deliberate. He sort of reminded me in his delivery, but not necessarily his voice, of Ian Dury a little bit, just in the kind of the way he approaches it. The songs are, I didn't really pick up all of what the songs are about, but they're generally about real life, but also rock and roll kind of lifestyle stuff. There's definitely drugs being mentioned several times. There's a bit of a kind of overgrown kid feel to him, but there are some adult themes. So, again, I mentioned the fact that drugs are mentioned, but I think there's songs that are definitely somewhat about sex in here as well. It's not entirely radio friendly all the time, which is interesting because musically it's very radio friendly. It's the kind of snappy stuff that radio DJs love. So I enjoyed it. It's good rock. It's got a good feel. It's very immediate. It's very kind of I wouldn't go so far as to say it's pop rock because I think it's too rocky for that. But it's nicely done. There's nice album sequencing. It moves on fast between the tracks, so it keeps the feel rolling on through. I think it's nicely put together. So I enjoyed it, and this is good because as a first encounter, I found something new that I like in this list. So that's great. Please let me know what you think about this album. I guess I'd especially like to hear from you if you happen to be Dutch and know this band of old, and you can give any more cultural context for this. I'd love to hear from you. Whatever you want to say, though, don't be shy. Please do talk to me through the comments box. That's it from me for now.
So good, must be wrong.